Hi everyone. We are back again after our previous. I think it's been now 3 videos, right?
It's been 3 videos now, yeah. That's the
It-
4th one actually, yeah. Right.
Yeah. Yes. And the last time we left off at demand management. So we started with a bit of a summary, went into ideas, then we discussed a bit about demands. And we were debating a bit what would be the next logical step. And there is a logic between following with portfolio management, but we thought that maybe the next logical step would be to discuss a bit about project management and the different kinds of projects that you can manage, and show you a bit also that how a software can support these kind of or these types of projects.
Exactly. Because from a workflow perspective, normally if you have your whole stream, you will see that from an idea to demand, that it is a logical step, and then from demand to project, it is also quite logical. So we decided to do this day, and the next time when we will do a decent recording, then we will follow up with portfolio management to have the overall summary for all those topics.
Yeah, and I think it would be probably logical then to maybe we'll separately talk about a waterfall approach or a waterfall project management, and then we will also separately talk about, so do not keep today's session long, we will talk about a more hybrid approach, or yeah, most likely we will not focus on agile methodology and agile things, but a hybrid project management in the next session only.
Exactly.
All right, so we left off somewhere there that we organized our demands. We collected all the information. We have a decision-making point at that point, whether a demand should be converted into a project and executed. So then what comes naturally next?
And naturally, you will have this decision point, and the decision point basically should give you at that point, you should have all the information ready that you need to say whether or not you want to execute this project really, and not put it only as a demand in the system, but really say, okay, we're going to follow a specific methodology, approve this project, and really put it into the pipeline. And then normally the work of the project managers really start, because until that time, they might be somehow involved in the planning and provide some information, but at that point, they really take over the responsibility and start working on the execution phase.
Okay, and then in the execution phase, do you take over all the information from the demand, or do you make any changes, or how do you kind of validate whether the information is fully correct for you to start the project?
Normally, I would say in an ideal world, you have the demand as some sort of baseline, and then you take over everything. Of course, you might need to adjust some plans because maybe timing has changed or some resources are not available. So you will, at the beginning of a project in the kickoff phase, you will still go into a more decent planning, because you're still on in the demand phase. You will still focus on, okay, we need as much information as possible, but not lose too much time with, I don't know what detailed plan, because we don't know yet if this is really going into a project. Whereas on the project world, you will be very, very precise and would like to have all the information relevant to make the project successful.
Yeah, okay. Sorry that I'm asking so many questions, but is there any kind of, I'm still learning in here also, is there any kind of different steps that you would need to take right in the beginning, whether it is a waterfall or a hybrid or an agile project, when you're just preparing, validating all the information and start building on top of it?
I think in general, and I'm learning here too, I think there are so many different methodologies out there, whether it is Prince2, PMI, you name them. I think they all provide very, very clear guidance on what you should do from a project manager perspective on how to make this successful. So every system that you're going to use should somehow support it. Of course, companies will lay out different rules depending on their organizational style, depending on their experience whatsoever. So I think there is no 100% clear answer to that, but in general, I would say, yeah, there are some guidelines, and I think there are also some best practices. Things like, okay, you should have, you should really have your stuff together in terms of, okay, what are your goals? What are the non-goals of the project? What are the business goals you want to achieve? What are the KPIs you want to measure success on? What are the costs and resources that you will need, and what are the benefits that you want to accrue in the end? So I think these are some things you really should consider in gathering. Also here, this is very highly depending on the maturity of the company you're working in. Because for some of those, it's only relevant that, okay, we just need to track the costs and the resources. Everything else is fine, but it's not necessary on that detailed level. So there is I think that the most difficult thing in here is that there is a high degree of difference even between projects, project types, and whatsoever, and also organizations.
Okay, maybe what we could do, I think it could help. If you can you share your screen with because I think it might give a good visual representation of what are the things and tasks and how a software can support in making sure that you have everything done in the right way. So this is now Clarity PPM. I think the last time we've worked with ServiceNow, these are the two PPM systems, project management, portfolio management systems that we prefer and we use regularly.
Exactly.
And I think it's important to note in here that you can also really customize this to, you mentioned also that every company is different, every project can be different. So you can really tailor the system to make sure that you collect every information that is relevant to your company and to that project.
Yeah, exactly. I think that is a general recommendation I would give, that you should look, when you search for a system, you should look at two things. The one thing is whether it really fits to your needs in terms of what is there out of the box, what is the standard, what does it bring as an added value for you, and on the other hand, to still have it as flexible as possible, maybe not too flexible, because this will also, with great power comes great responsibility, as we know. But still that you have options to change things. And I just go into one project that you can see here to just name some things. Like these items should be flexible, because maybe it's not relevant for all your projects in general that you, I don't know, track some which organizational unit is this into, that you have different stakeholders managed whatsoever.
This is a waterfall project we are looking at, right?
Exactly. This is a classical waterfall style project where you have the different elements, and I will tackle some of them a little bit later. But you're absolutely right. I think it's essential that the system is flexible in the end and provides you still with a good amount of default functionality, that you do not have to program or define everything on your own.
Yeah, and in here, what I see is that a lot of the information is already overlapping the information that you had in the demand, right? So
exactly.
when we talk about waterfall projects, then a lot of the information is really carried over from the demand. Also a benefit of using a system, whether it's Clarity, whether it's ServiceNow. But then you do not have to start building again, but you have a good template with a lot of information in here that you can build on. Was just looking at probably financials, and financial plans are carried over from the demand, and then
exactly.
and then resource related entries in the demand are carried over to the project.
No, there are definitely some elements, and that's where the beauty of demand management comes in, because you do not do the work twice. You can carry over those things. You can really sort them out. And you can even also define baselines throughout the development of the project. This is also important. You know, so every good system should support you in that, because the baselines. So let's summarize maybe from a financial perspective. I think that's a good way of explaining this. What does a baseline actually mean? So when you start with a project, you might start with the initial plan that you were taking over from the demand, for example. So you had your, okay, I have my total cost of 2.7 million whatsoever for this project. As it goes on and on and on, plans tend to change and shift somehow, and you might need to adjust these plans. So on the one hand, to add additional financial plans is a very good thing. And on the other hand, to also not only see the history, and not only do this for the financial plans, but for everything that you have in the system, like also the resources, also like risk issues, changes, the overall details of the project. There should always be a baseline where you can compare against on a regular basis. And this is actually what also a good system should provide you with, these possibilities and opportunities.
When it's good that you mentioned tracking, but because in my mind, when you're managing a project, and I am not the greatest of project managers of all time, so
just me neither.
a bit of a thinking out loud. Whenever you do that, there are, in my opinion, three aspects, right? To check and to constantly check, and to make sure that they are on track. One is you have to follow the tasks and their completion, so the work actually being done. The other is resources that you the resources that you are using for it, whether it's on track, whether you are using a lot more people or a lot more effort than you previously calculated. And the third is financials, and of course all three are interlinked, because if you are delayed with your tasks and you put more effort into it, then your finances will most likely be also upside down.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very good summary. I mean, that's exactly, you have besides some additional governance, which you should also keep in mind. I think these are the three most important topics that you will probably see in every classical project, in every waterfall project, and even also I would say in all other project types as well, because you will want to have a governance based on your financials, on your resources, and completion. And these are the three entities that you have. So I just popped on a very classical Gantt chart-like element where you see the different tasks that you have and which state they are. And also you see here ETC, so they estimate the time to completion. So from a project manager perspective, you will see this information very handy in an overview. And also here the advantage of an integrated system, because every good PPM system should provide you with the opportunity or possibility to also record the timesheets, so that these things come back to the system, and based on that, automatically calculations are done. The same is for assignments, financials, and all of that stuff.
Yeah. Sorry that I interrupted you, but nowadays I hear, and all the hype is about agile and scaled agile, and who and why would they still use waterfall? What do you think? What kind of projects are still rather fitting a waterfall approach?
I think you still have. There are advantages to both of the methodologies, and I definitely will not go into this discussion, because this will probably end up into a war or something like that, maybe. But I think there are some projects that just don't fit into an agile world. Like if you, I don't know, have a migration project to just migrate servers or whatsoever. Yeah, you don't want to do that agile. You have to plan it up front, and you have a very defined endpoint. And I think all projects where we really need a very specific outcome on a very specific point in time, they will rather fit into a very classical approach. If you have a value, if you have something where you want to deliver a value, a specific value, but not a, let's say, deliver it or a specific work outcome, they probably would more fit into an agile or hybrid style execution method. Okay.
All right. And it's just wanted to have a clear picture on it. I know it's a very deep topic, and we have a common colleague that would be able to probably talk a good 1.5 to 2 days about the benefits of both. Yeah, I think it makes sense what you said. I think it generally makes sense, and every rule. Yeah, I just want to point out before there is actually the World War III starting because of these comments. Every rule is a rule because there are exceptions to it. So I am pretty sure there are projects that are rather, we would think, fitting a waterfall approach, but might end up benefiting from an agile approach, and vice versa.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that's the point. I mean, what all methods should have somehow in common is that you want to have a status overview. Whether you do it in agile and hybrid or something else, you will always want to somehow have a governance around it. And that's, if you look at it then from not only from a project, but also from a portfolio perspective, which is one level higher, or from a program, or however you name it, you want to keep track of these things. You want to see, okay, what are the open tasks? What are your risk issues? What are potential changes? And what are your metrics? Whether it is like in an agile world, maybe completion, not based on tasks, but based on story points that you already did. It doesn't matter. You want to have a view on what is the development and how far are you still from your projected goal. And I think these are the most important things that every system should cover. Besides these elements, I mean, there is so much more to tell, but that will probably end up into a very boring 2.5-hour demo instead of a short video.
So this is something, a classic waterfall approach can be supported for us by both Clarity and ServiceNow, right? They cover it pretty well. I'm more familiar with ServiceNow. I do like to use it quite a lot, but this looks very similar. I'm pretty sure there are some strengths in one, and which are not as strong in the other one, but they look fairly easy to understand for my eyes.
Absolutely. No, I think you could basically, depending on what you really want to achieve, you could easily use both systems for everything that is related to project and portfolio management. As said, maybe the one is better in a specific area than the other, but in general, if you look at systems, you want to always see it from a broader perspective, and it should bring more or less the basic functionality like I've just showed you to go through these elements out of the box, whatever name it is. And these are the most important things, I would say.
Okay, so I think what I'm still interested in, and what we could do then the next time, as I said, we discussed, just for transparency, we discussed before the meeting that let's not go into really deep agile discussions. But what I will be interested in, and what we could do at the next session is go a bit into the differences between a waterfall project management and a hybrid project management, again supported by a tool, what it could give, and what can be the differences. I think this was again like a short overview of a bit of a mix of what the software can do and what we think could be the important elements of project management. But it's so difficult to even summarize it or think about it, because this is the deepest and most difficult and the most varied. As you said in the beginning, there are so many different kinds of project management. It's hard to summarize, but maybe we could talk about then the hybrid difference between hybrid and classic waterfall project management in the next session, if you're fine with that.
Yeah, sure, we should do that. It will be interesting.
Yeah, especially for me, because I have never done anything in a hybrid manner, at least at least not that I know of. Maybe I did. We'll see in the next session.
We see in the next session. So stay tuned. Talk to you later.
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.